Well, good day, everyone, and welcome back to the next segment of The Good Word. And on today's segment, I'd like to briefly touch on just a couple things. We're going to go over our system, our overall system, speaking on religion, government, down to our local and personal systems. And we're also going to touch on the concepts of good and bad. Now, to start, first, let me say, for anyone who may be listening, if you are not at a point in your development or your growth, or you are not at a place on your journey where you cannot look at society as a whole and see how each of these smaller systems feeds the system above it, and how each of these systems is tied into the next, thus all of them are tied together, this message is probably not for you at this point. And that's not a bad or negative thing. It's just that we do ourselves a great injustice by trying to get ahead of ourselves. But I digress. Let's get into this. Now, I'd like to start first with belief. Now, the dictionary tells us belief is the mental act, condition, or habit of placing trust or confidence in another or something. This is what the definition of belief is. And now we all believe, not all of us, but a great many people believe, and will say, the government is bad, religion is bad. And in truth, we see so many bad things. We see wars, and we see all these negative things, and we call them bad. And we see these larger things, being the systems that control them, as also being bad because they control these things, these negative aspects. However, what we must come to know is that our concepts of good and bad are just that. They are our concepts. They have nothing to do with the truth. They have nothing to do with the overall. And that is why, I was recently asked, and I've been asked many times, why would God allow such a system? Why would God allow this government to be in place? Why would God allow for his religions to be so corrupted? And, to that I would have to say, firstly, to start at the latter, God has no religions. Religions are man-made concepts. You made these things up. We made these things up. And we try to place them on God. When, that is as egotistical as it is wrong. But, again, I digress. We see these things as bad because of the damage that they do. And just looking at that, we have to realize that those of us who were and have attained, and when I say us, I mean I'm speaking as a whole, and I'm speaking as a whole in all of what we call time. When I say those of us, all of us. So those of us who were able to remain neutral have been the ones who progressed the furthest, have been the ones who attain the greatest knowledge, the greatest wisdom. So when we look at concepts and ideas like Buddha, we look at Seth, we look at Jesus even, we kind of have to look at Jesus outside of the New Testament, because He is very judgmental in the New Testament. But if we can look at these concepts as they exist as a whole, when you get to Jesus, you kind of have to go into more of the Apocrypha. You have to go into all the things that the religion tried to remove and renounce in order to create their version of Jesus. We have to study all to try to pretend to even perceive the portion. And I hope you can comprehend what I just said. But again, moving forward, these ideas, these concepts, these people, if you will, if they were people at one point, their ability to remain neutral allowed them to ascend to points that no one else had and no one else has since, at least to our knowledge, to our knowing, on a broad scale. And so to automatically place this judgment of bad on the system is an error. It's detrimental to ourselves. But having said that, I am the first, and I can only stand and will only stand on myself. But I will tell you, yes, I believe this government is bad. They promote war, they promote death, they promote usury. Like there's nothing about this system. I mean, even if we go into it has one goal: continuity of self is it, and everything is expendable to that degree. As long as it's about the continuity of self, we're all replaceable. They'll kill us all, and be rightful in doing so, because that is the system. Even with something like that, we must remember these concepts of good and bad are our concepts. So when it's asked, why would God allow such a system to be in place? First, it's egotistical to even think that any of us, the greatest of us, can perceive anything of God. We try to place our concepts on God, but that's because we are feeble. You are feeble if you think you can place a concept on God. Everybody wants to call God a man, and then nowadays, I don't think people are really paying attention to how the system is shifting for its own continuity away from God being a man, and now God is a woman, which in truth, God is neither. If we have any comprehension, if you are able to understand, and overstand anything, you have to know God is not a man nor a woman. These are physical traits. Period. These are ideas and concepts that the vast majority of us don't understand. So to try to place that on God is such an error, such an error. However, we do, and we now, we refer to God as, the Father. But as we were taught, let's just keep moving forward. As we were taught, so as above, so below. And so our government system that is in place is merely a reflection of the system that is going on above, whatever above means to you, outside of our realm of comprehension, of sight, above. And now I'm going to use as an example the Galactic Federation. Now I don't want to go into any controversy. As I have studied the Galactic Federation, I think it's an interesting concept. But again, this is merely something I am using as an example for this speech, this lecture, whatever you want to call it. So, the Galactic Federation is controlled by a large council made up of smaller councils that themselves consist of even smaller councils, each of which has representation from all the separate members. This way, the enormous organization stays manageable. The hierarchy between members is usually determined by their spiritual development. The most highly evolved members are beautiful light beings who voice the will of God. Excuse me. And now on that last part, I don't know that I know any person, any being that is part of the Galactic Federation. If I do, I don't know that I know them. So again, I don't know anyone in the Galactic Federation. However, and I don't know what these beings would necessarily be consisted of. However, unless some of these beings are able to actually go into the place, the realm, the space that God exists in, and actually hold what we know to be conversation with God, then it is an error to believe that anyone or anything can voice the will of God. A lot of us think we are doing that, and we do so to the best of our abilities and the best of our comprehension, but that is ego, But again, I digress. We're using the Galactic Federation as an example of as above. And now our government systems are simply a mirror of the as above. And that is the reason why they were in power, they are in power, and they are going to continue to be in power until such a time as there is a system that can replace it. Regardless of what you think is good or what I think is bad, and vice versa. The system is in place and will be in place until there is something to replace it. You cannot remove the system and not have something to replace it with. Again, as above, so below. So keep that in mind. This government is in place and will be in place and is allowed, if that's even the proper terminology, because it is a functioning system. It is a proper system, regardless of whether I think it's good, you think it's bad, or I think it's bad and you think it's good, regardless of any of that. Because in truth, my opinion and your opinion, unfortunately, they count for a lot, but in the overall, they mean absolutely nothing. So we should all try to keep that in mind to the best of our own abilities. But the system, it is a system, and that is why it is in place, and that is why you will not see a greater force from somewhere else come in and replace this system. If this system is to be replaced, it will be replaced by us. Because regardless of what you think, we built this system. Even if you personally and me personally did not build the system, we as a whole built this system. Thus, it is our system. Thus, if we want to replace the system, then we should come up with a better system. Something that we can all perceive and agree on as better. But until such a time, this system will remain. And we should do our best to move into neutrality. we should not, we should do our best to not say it's good or bad. We should remain neutral. As is the example with you know, all of our great leaders, especially in a religious sense. When you talk about your, you know, your Buddha, your Seth, your Jesus even. Unfortunately, you're probably going to want to go outside of the New Testament. There are many teachings on and from what we are told is Jesus, and the vast majority are apocrypha. But you know, that's one of the things I consider is bad about our religious system. But again, that is my perception, and we're moving past that. But again, I say all that to say that these entities, these beings that we were told existed at flesh at some point, when they existed as flesh, the examples we are given of them being here in the flesh, they attained things that no one else did because of their neutrality. We can't say death is bad because we don't, most of us can't even perceive death. when a lot of us hear people say things like there's no such thing as death, you have to realize 95% of the population at whole cannot even perceive what there's no such thing as death. What does that even mean? So, you know, keep in mind our perceptions are limited. Comprehension is limited, and we should, you know, move forward with that knowledge for our own safety and our own good. I would like to, I don't know how many are here today who can recall a gentleman, or maybe I shouldn't call him a gentleman, a guy named Timothy McVeigh. He was part of some form of a hardcore, I guess I call them right-wing extremists. I really don't remember the group. I really don't remember much about him. The story was there was a federal building in Oklahoma where a bomb was exploded, and the blame was placed on this Timothy McVeigh. But if we're just going along with the story, for the sake of what we're doing here, we're going to say that it was all factual. Timothy McVeigh drove a van into this government building and blew up a good portion of the building. Now, the point I'm making in bringing this up is whoever this Timothy McVeigh is tied to, whoever this group is, and I can't even remember what the building was they were trying to destroy, but whatever section of the government they were trying to bring down, they need to have a system, a ready system that can be put in place immediately after the destruction of what they're trying to destroy. And if they do not have that, then what they are creating, I truly believe, you know, nobody is going to allow that. As above, so below. So good, bad, or otherwise, no one's going to allow that. If you don't have a system to put in place, like, not only are you making things harder for yourself, which is fine, everybody has the right to do that. That's all part of learning. None of us have the right to put others into situations that they're not ready for. And that is exactly, you know, what they would have done. Again, I can't remember the building, what they were exactly attacking. But if they were able to shut down or eliminate a section, they need to be able to replace that section, is the point I'm making. And this is something that everyone needs to keep in mind. This system, again, is in place and will be in place because it is a system. Not only is it a functioning system, but it is a system that is being participated in by all, even those of us who don't want to be involved. We do our best. We're in it but not of it, and all this other good old stuff that we can say. But in truth, we are in it and of it. The way your name is formatted, you have a social security number, like everything about this system. You are in the system and you are of the system. Now, for almost all of us, I'll say for all of us, it wasn't our choice. We were placed in the system at birth. And as we grew, we knew nothing but the system. We were taught nothing but the system. And so our involvement in the system grew with us. So there needs to be a system, is the overall point that I am making. And so if you can establish your own system, if you can come up with your own, government, and in truth, breaking it down all the way to the personal level, our foundations should reflect also this exact same format. As above, so below. So if we can formulate our personal systems, our personal foundation in this manner and grow them, they will grow into a proper system. And you will have multiple participants, the more people doing something, the more power it has. Whether you think it's good or bad, the more people doing it, the more power it has, period. And so that is something that we also need to keep in mind for our good and the good of those around us. And that's really the message I wanted to get across here, because I've asked the question long ago, but I've been asked recently on multiple occasions, why would God allow such a thing? And outside of, first and foremost, our concepts of good or bad are skewed, are false. False all the way around, false. It's learned behavior, period. And most people can't understand that. You tell them there's no such thing as good or bad, you lost them. Lost them. But that is something that we need to keep in mind, we need to realize. So whether you look at the system and you see the good things, you look at the system and you see the bad things, recognize the system is the reason why whatever we perceive as good or bad is allowed to happen, because of the system. And thus, if the system is foul and corrupt, then replace the system. But don't attack the system without an idea of something, or forget an idea without actually having done some work first to have something to replace that system. Because again, even if you were to be successful and you were able to dismantle whatever it is you're attacking, if you don't have something to put in place, like take yourself out of it for a moment, think about your loved ones, if you have kids or your friends, those who you care about. If you think this is chaos, without this, what do you think it's going to be like? In truth, you cannot perceive it. You can have an IQ right now of 300 or higher, which none of us on this plane have, at least that we know. But that perception is beyond even that. So we must come to know, and we should know, the reason it is allowed is because it is a system, it is a functioning system that everyone is participating in. And that is why God allows it to happen. There's no good or bad. Take that out. And even if there is good or bad, our perception of good or bad is so skewed, it's so base. It is at such a elementary level that it cannot be quantified, and it should not be spoke of in greater company. Always keep that in mind. And neutrality, if you think the system is bad, do your best to not participate. And if you live here, that's only going to go so far. But you can, in a lot of ways, not participate. You can, I would say, the more productive thing to do would be to establish another form. As we look, if we do research, there are alternate governments in place now. They may not have power, but these are actual systems that people have worked towards and built, and have other people in the system working for the system. And so if one of these systems was to attack the larger system, at least that makes some sense. They have something in place. So if they're able to be successful and remove whatever it is they're attacking, they have something that can be put in place. That the flow of all of us little people need not be disturbed in our journey, in our learning, to too much of an extent. And that is really the point I wanted to get out with this message. We can look at all these systems and we can always point out bad. I went through, I can't even tell you how much studying, how many years, how many books that consist of multiple books. How many actual scrolls I have read and memorized and learned, just to get to a point where I can be ordained and recognized as one with this knowledge. And I did it primarily because I see all the bad. When I look around, especially, it's been a while since I attended anyone else's service, but it's usually at a disgusting level. Like, for the majority, you're not a priest, you're not a pastor, you're not looking out for your flock, you're a pimp. This is usury. You are taking advantage of these people, you are subjugating them, and you are keeping them at a state that is detrimental to their growth. So, these concepts of heaven and hell are again, concepts. But for me, as I look and as I had to experience for the majority of my life, being under the rule of these people that are called pastors and priests, that have not your best interests at heart, but their own financial gain and the financial gain of their system, period. That is what prompted me to go as far as I did in my studies and to attain ordination. Like, to be a priest of God, especially if you study your word, it has nothing to do with being ordained. Being ordained is being accepted in a certain system by a certain set of people based on the knowledge that they teach. So I had to go and learn multiple religions to be ordained in multiple faiths. And I did that because what I see and what I perceive is wrong. And in my efforts to try to, and I don't even want to prove it wrong, I would just like to give a better direction to those who seek. And that is the point. That's why I did it. That's why I'm speaking to you now. But that perception is my perception. Good and bad, again, remember, that's the whole point of this. These are our ideas, these are our perceptions. And to try to place them on something above us, something that, you know, we can theorize on, and we can all formulate opinions on, and you know, we can prove a lot. Especially, I can lull you to sleep all day with these scripts and texts. You know how much of this information I have stored? How much of this information I can regurgitate at a moment's notice and just rock you, lull you right to sleep. That is kind of the point. But, you know, again, I digress. We're going to get ready to close out. I really just wanted to get that point across and provide, you know, just an alternative way of seeing, which is what I try to do with everything. You know, the more alternate ways we have of seeing one thing, the more we develop, the greater we are for it, and the more alternate ways we will be able to see things in the future. No, it's all about growth and development, and that is the whole point of what I am trying to do with this good word. But yeah, so with that, we're going to close this one out. Thank everybody who came in and listened. And I'll say, yeah, everyone have a good day, and we'll see you on the next good word.